divorce. Okay, so last week we were talking about stuff and things. This week we're going to start at Vayikra, chapter 7, verse 8. That's Leviticus for the uninitiated. Where we left off in the previous verse, there was a commentary by Kyle and Deluche about verse 8 that said in the case of the burnt offering, the skin of the animal was to fall to the lot of the officiating priest, vis-a-vis, they sure like to say that a lot, as payment for his services. In other words, when the animal was skinned, the skin went to the priest because the skin was very valuable, especially if that priest happened to be a scribe. He could use it to write a scroll for himself or to sell to somebody else. So the skins were very valuable for that. They were, warm in the winter kind of thing. They could be used as a curtain to separate off your bedroom from your living area because their houses were basically just a little box. And it could be used as your bed as well. They'd pile them up over the years. Families would pass them down and pass them down, pass them down. And eventually they got real thick like a modern day mattress, if you will, though they wouldn't have looked like one. But you get what I'm saying. There was value in that skin, and that skin for that particular offering went to the Cohen who was officiating. Now, there's some argument about that if you remember that from last week, but that is what the scripture says in this particular place. So it says, it goes to, where did it say? Where was I? Vis-a-vis as payment for his services is construed absolutely. As, and then they're quoting, as for the priest who offereth the skin of the burnt offering which he offereth shall belong to the priest. Okay, so I guess they got that out of whatever Bible they were using back in the 1800s. And then in parentheses it says the word for, and then a double set of parentheses inside that saying to him. So they're talking about the lamed being added to the front of the word. We translate that as the word for, or we translate it as to, sometimes because, just different things to make it make sense in English. So they're saying it was for him, because I remember what it was. It's the lamed followed by the vav in Hebrew, and so it's to him. That's not a word. It's just they put those two letters together and it becomes a word, to him. In English, we can do that. You can write to, and that's a word, right? But what happens if you write xi? Does that mean anything? ck, does that mean anything? I mean, it's the same way in Hebrew, except that when Hebrew, the lamed and the vav follow together, that's not really a word. It becomes two words, even though it's just two letters, one for each word. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying there. They said this was probably the case also with the trespass offering and sin offering of the laity, whereas the skin of the peace offering belonged to the owner of the animal. So in most cases, they're saying, when an animal was slaughtered and, the skin, they would skin it and then they would cut it up into pieces and then they would cook it. And part of the food went to the priest and part of the food went to the person who brought the animal, and everybody got to eat. It was just a big barbecue, right? But in the peace offering, the family that brought that lamb or that cow or whatever it was, I mean, if it's a big family, you're probably going to bring a big cow, you know what I'm saying? Because you got a lot of people to feed. But anyway, and that happened back then, not because everybody had 47 kids, but because families lived together in a town. And so if one cow was enough to feed the whole family, there you go. Or two, some towns are bigger than others. But it's just the whole family coming together, and it's enough meat to feed them. That's how you knew what to offer in most cases, because it doesn't actually say in most cases. Some cases it has to be a lamb, like Pesach. Some cases it has to be a cow. Sometimes it has to be turtle doves. And so there's some of that. But other times, like a peace offering, peace offering, maybe not so much, but Thanksgiving offering could be anything. Anything. I mean, you could bring a check for $1 bazillion if you wanted to. I'm just saying. All right, so we're moving on to our next verse, which very literally, which is 8, our first verse today, but it's verse 8, and literally in English it would say, and the Cohen that make come. So in other words, we would say that bring. Burnt offering, man hide the burnt offering that come near to Cohen, to he will be. And you might remember the idiom from last week. It's coming up again. So it starts off with the HaKohen. So it's and the priest, very literally. And we would probably write it that way in a translation. We don't need to move the words around, correct? So this is Hama Keriv. I don't know why I said it wrong because I'm thinking of something else. Before I move on, see, I should have just jumped in there a while ago. Now I forgot what I was going to tell you. It was why is it on some words I go into detail and talk about what it means, and some words I don't? Because this is a good thing for me to say. I don't think I've said it in a long time. In Hebrew, a noun is a noun. Is a noun is a noun. It is never not a noun. So, a word like shepherd in English can be a noun and a verb, right? In Hebrew, it will sound like it's a noun. Yahweh roi lo exar, right? The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. So, was that a noun or was that a verb? In Hebrew, it was a verb. It was a verb. It was a verb. It was never a noun, never a noun, never a noun. It was always a verb because shepherd is always a verb. Okay? In English, we don't do it that way. The same word can be a noun or it can be a verb. So there you go. But when you're talking about a noun is a noun is a noun, noun. It's never a verb. It's never anything but a noun. It's always a noun. A noun is always a noun. Why am I doing that? Well, because after saying something almost exactly like what I just said, a guy actually taking my translation class and wrote a book based on nothing but nouns. Oy, oy, oy. You don't look for secret meaning in nouns. If a man is named David, you say David in America. You say David everywhere else in the world because that's how it's pronounced. If a man is named David, we don't make a book talking about, oh, see, that means beloved, and see, this guy was beloved, blah, blah, blah. And then Aharon, see, he was the lamp bearer, and he was born to be the lamp bearer. No, these are just names. That's all they ever were. They were just titles. That's all they ever were. They are nothing but a noun. There is no secret numeric value here. There is no secret hidden thing for us to learn here. A noun is a noun, and thus I don't talk about them. Moving back onto our word, ha-makarim, that make come. We say that bring, right? To bring someone, to approach, to come near, poetically used of time, even time is drawing near, stuff like that. But it's this is to bring. So you're grabbing someone or something, someone by the hand and leading them somewhere, or you got a maybe a sheep and you got a little leash around his neck or his body, whichever way you are, if you're a PETA person, and you're bringing him somewhere, you're leading. This is the idea of leading, but it's to make them. I mean, the word is to make that get from over there to over here or whatever that deal is, but it's to bring. This is et, which has no meaning. It points at something. At what? What's it pointing at? Olat. That's the word for burnt offering. What is laid on the altar? So you bring the sheep, you skin him, as we call it. After you kill him and drain the blood, then you skin him, then you chop him all up into pieces, and then you olat. You put him on the altar and cook him. Well, cook his parts, his pieces and parts. And it says ish. Oh no, that's followed by or. You cook the man's hide. No, the man will cook the hide. That's what they mean. They just hit me funny. All right, so yeah, the man will cook the hide. This is ha'olah, of the burnt offering. Asher hik riv, that he brought. Bringing the offering, not the priest. And that's actually important, because there's all kinds of arguments in the Talmud and various other literature, like the works of Rashi and others, that argue this nonsense. It tells you right here very clearly who brings this offering. And does that mean that women don't do it? In their day, mostly, but not wholly. It's written in the masculine. We have to keep that in mind. This is a gender-specific language. Specific language does not mean, well, it specifically said man, so it's specifically a man. No, that's the way things work in the Western world. That's not the way they work in our world. The man that they're talking about here is the head of the family. And sometimes women were the head of the family, and the Jews were perfectly fine with that. Because it happens, the men die off. Who was the head of the family when Naomi went back to Jerusalem with her daughter-in-law? I'll wait. Just saying, who had to bring the offering? Oh, it was Boaz. No, he wasn't in the picture when they got home. Anyway, just to give you an example so that you know I'm not just making it up. So now we're going to say La Cohen, Lo, which is the two he. That's the Lamed Vav thing I was talking about earlier. So this verse is apparently saying exactly what the previous verse here. Remember, this Lo is a sound alike. It sounds like no, not. Okay, that's Lamed Aleph. This is Lamed Vav. So these are two letters that are just stuck together, and they become to he, literally, or to him, as we would say it. Then it says ye, yeah, it will be to him. But in this case, it's like saying he will be, or it will be. Because remember, it in Hebrew is gender specific. So we say the word he, or we say the word she. In this case, the yod has been added to the ferd. So it will be. It's probably the way to say it, or you can say it, he will be. Either way is correct. They're not wrong with things if you're going to understand this verse. Then, now we're to the part of translating it into English and bringing it all together. So my translation of verse 8, and the Cohen who brings the burnt offering, a man. All right. I probably shouldn't have said it that way. I mean, that's a perfectly fine translation, except that now we're into the process